What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news and updates, and we've got clarification on some of the changes that we've seen in Bungie's most recent patch for D2. They also touch on Light 3.0 updates, as well as issues with copyright strikes that some creators have been seeing, and additionally they ask for feedback on some Witch Queen issues. We'll also cover a new story beat for the week, plus Bungie spoke in a recent interview about some bigger picture D2 stuff, so we're going to round it all up in the video guys. As always, if you enjoy this one, a rating below really does help us out. But otherwise, let's get into it. First up today, Bungie tweeted and they said, "We're aware of a series of copyright takedowns on YouTube and we're actively investigating. This includes content on our own Bungie channels, and these actions are not being taken at the request of Bungie or our partners." And this refers to some issues that folks have had on YouTube specifically, where creators have been receiving copyright takedown notices, which is basically where the content owner requests the takedown of media content that they own. However, it appears in this case that someone's been taking advantage of that system and has somehow been able to try and claim Bungie's content. Bungie themselves typically have a kind of 20% rule, essentially saying that the vast majority of any creator's content should be their own content, right? As opposed to using Bungie trailers, music, or other assets outside of gameplay. So Bungie do have the ability to request takedowns, but once again they've said that they're not actively doing it at this time. Fortunately, we haven't been affected on my channel, at least up until now, and hopefully it'll be an issue that's resolved for folks in general moving forward. But back onto gameplay specific stuff, if you happen to use the Xbox Game Pass on PC, Microsoft have updated the list and they do say that Destiny 2 Beyond Light, Shadowkeep, and Forsaken are going to be leaving the Game Pass on April 11th. So definitely bear that in mind. Certainly frustrating if you're playing on those platforms, but this is kind of the way they handle the Game Pass content over time. Next though, of course, yesterday we had a patch for Destiny 2 with more changes than expected for Witch Queen content, and that included some ability tuning, and I'll link details for the patch below. But Kevin Yanis from Bungie went on to say, "We have some small tweaks here. As a reminder, we expect to be slower on balance updates because we're ultimately tuning towards a world where every damage type lives in the subclass 3.0 world." Plus he clarified that we will be getting a Light 3.0 update per season until all Light subclasses are done. And I was curious myself as to when we'd see the next Light 3.0 update, but as he pointed out, they'd already clarified that we'd see one every season in D2 Year 5, at least until all of them have been updated. So it'll be cool to see whether we get Solar or Arc next season. Be sure to let us know what you think below. Of course, one of the changes in Bungie's patch yesterday decreased the amount of shots required to fully power a glaive, and DMG said this is a minor change that we could get out quickly, but they'll continue to pass along thoughts and feelings about the exotic perks. And on Twitter, DMG was asking for clarification on some of the glaive feedback. He says they have seen items like perks should trigger on glaive melees, as opposed to just the projectile. And of course there are various different perks that interact in different ways across the legendaries and the exotic glaives, and some of them don't necessarily perform as expected, or as well as they could. Then absolutely there is that additional layer of exotic glaive feedback. And so give us any thoughts you have about glaives in general down below, legendaries and exotics. Of course the positive for now is that Bungie are continuing to take feedback on the weapons, and it seems likely that we will see some additional tuning and changes for them in the future. A quick story thing for this week though, despite the fact that the Operation Elbrus quest has wrapped up and the majority of the seasonal kind of rotation is now available in the game, we did get a new voice message in the Helm. And this is a message from Keitel about Saladin's progress in the Cabal, and apparently he's been proving himself as a warrior in their ranks, even seeing a promotion. And there's some slightly amusing dialogue right here from the message board at the Helm.
"Greetings, Guardian. I come bearing enlightening news. Bracchus Forge has earned himself quite a reputation among the Cabal. Within his first 3 days aboard my ship, he was challenged to 6 rites of proving. He prevailed in them all. One of those challenges came from an officer on my war council. Bracchus Forge defeated him with a single thunderous blow. As is our custom, he was promoted to Valis for his courage. He has also started a version of the Iron Banner aboard my flagship, at my request. There were many volunteers for his training. He calls his legionaries Iron War Beasts. We have much to learn from one another, and Valis Forge is an excellent ambassador. I dare say he even likes it here. And if a human can ascend to the rank of Valis in such a short time, imagine what the future holds. May we all live long enough to find out."
Up next though, we got an interview between Bungie and Axios.com. and it's titled How Bungie Keep Making Destiny 2 5 years after release. So it's kind of bigger picture stuff about how they handle the franchise at large. And the interview starts by pointing out that Sony acquired Bungie in January, but also that hundreds of developers work on the game all year round, and Bungie have teams who work on specific disciplines, such as rewards and seasonal activities, which is different from early Destiny where teams were divided by content releases such as a specific expansion. But they go on to say on the subject of Destiny 3, Justin Truman from Bungie says we want it to be a single evolving world. And they compare Destiny to trying to make something like Disneyland. You don't build Disneyland 2, you update it and improve it and make it more modern, which is their approach to Destiny now. Justin Truman also said that a single game was always Bungie's vision, and it diplomatically avoided naming the former publisher Activision, but said it was harder for us to maintain the true spirit of this vision until we were able to be creatively independent and direct how we saw the Destiny world could go. And then he goes on to speak about the Destiny content vault, and there aren't any real specifics, but he said that past content becomes an anchor that prevents us from moving forward and creating new content. They point out that with Forsaken, Bungie spared one of the two main explorable zones, the Dreaming City, and Truman says that it was because it was a more endgame content focused destination, and so the studio considers that more evergreen. And they tried to ask whether we should expect 2020 expansion Beyond Light or Witch Queen to be vaulted at some point in the future, and Truman simply said he doesn't know. But that's how they're currently managing technical complexity. Then they speak about new players and Destiny still being a difficult game to get into. And Justin Truman says, I don't think we've figured out exactly what is the right way for someone to feel like they're catching up and that they get to participate in the right way with something that happened 2 years ago. So they're experimenting with solutions for that. He also says they're learning about live events. And Truman referred to the multiplayer mission offered at the end of Season of the Lost as a Destiny version of a live event, and even referred to how players were able to skip the final cutscene and some of the issues and errors they had around that piece of content, and simply said, we learn. So they're definitely taking into consideration this kind of feedback for future events. And finally, they say more seasons will follow this year, and at least 2 more expansions will drop for the live game. And so just a few small insights right there. And of course, we are going to get less conversation about future content really now until we start approaching the launch of Season 17. But that's only a couple of months away at this point. So give us any thoughts about the content flow, how you feel Witch Queen is panning out now that we're a few weeks in, and any stuff that you'd like to see in seasons this year. But the final thing to touch on right here, just a quick mention, players spoke about obtaining exotic armor pieces at the end of the Witch Queen campaign. And essentially because if you unlock one at the end of the campaign, it'll add it to your loot pool, which means future drops of it are going to be reasonably rare and inconsistent, right? Because you've got so many different things that could potentially drop. And so essentially the recommendation is to leave those exotics on Ikora and instead focus on farming the lost sectors when you get to the appropriate level. The new exotics will have the highest drop chance then, but also can potentially roll with much better stats than what you get from the vendor. Of course, not necessarily super useful if you've done all of your characters, but if you haven't played Witch Queen yet, or if you've got other characters to run, it could be something to bear in mind. For today though guys, that is everything we have to speak about in the video, so as always I hope you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, a rating down below really does help us out, but definitely get subscribed so I can keep you posted with more Destiny 2 content. And otherwise I hope you guys have an awesome day.